What's up, you guys? Welcome to the video. Tonight's SpinMaster collection video night with all the BKT customs and all the thematics and BKT customs and Gravedigger thematics and color treads into two custom trucks. And we'll go ahead and start the video with Gears Blue Thunder. Now this thing, gold chassis and wheels with white roll cage and tires, golden BKT printing with Astro treads. Moving on to Ice Gravedigger. Now this thing, blue chassis and wheels with white roll cage with clear blue tires with white BKT printing with white ice treads. Moving on to Zombie Megalodon. Now this thing, black chassis with red roll cage, green wheels, black BKT printing with glitter treads. Moving on to Galaxy's Monster Mutt Dalmatian. Now this thing, cyan chassis with beadlocks and BKT printing with black roll cage and wheels with dark purple treads. Moving on to Fire Son of a Digger. Now this thing, red chassis and wheels with yellow roll cage with red BKT printing with yellow fire treads. Moving on to Hunter Max D. Now this thing, gray chassis with brown roll cage, mahogany wheels, chrome BKT printing with Hunter treads. Moving on to Gears Alien Invasion. Everything looks the same as Blue Thunder. Moving on to Ice Dragon. Everything looks the same as Gravedigger. Moving on to Zombie El Toro Loco. Now this thing, black chassis with yellow roll cage, red wheels, black BKT printing with glitter treads. Moving on to Galaxy's Bakugan Dragonoid. Everything looks the same as a Dalmatian. Moving on to Fire Great Clips Mohawk Warrior. Everything looks the same as Son of a Digger. Moving on to Hunter Earthshaker. Everything looks the same as Max D. Moving on to the Neo Galaxy Gravedigger. Now this thing, white chassis with purple roll cage, pink wheels, teal tires with white BKT printing. Moving on to the Nitro Gravedigger. Now this thing, pink chassis with Black roll cage and wheels with purple beaked printing and bead locks. Got teal wheels. Moving on to Beakety Customs Gravedigger. Now this thing. Silver chassis with green roll cage and bead locks, beaked printed tires. Moving on to Beakety Customs Gravedigger Orange. Now this thing. Silver chassis with orange roll cage and wheels, beaked printed tires. Moving on to Beakety Customs Gravedigger Red. Now this thing. Silver chassis with red roll cage and wheels, beaked printed tires. Moving on to Beakety Customs Gravedigger Purple. Now this thing. Black chassis with purple roll cage with blue wheels, beaked printed tires. Moving on to Beakety Customs Son of a Digger. Now this thing. Silver chassis and wheels with blue roll cage with purple bead locks, beaked printed tires. Moving on to Beakety Customs Gravedigger Son of a Digger Yellow. Now this thing. Silver chassis and wheels with yellow roll cage, purple bead locks, beaked printed tires. Moving on to Beakety Customs Velociraptor. Now this thing. Silver chassis with black roll cage and wheels, beaked printed tires. Moving on to Beakety Customs Jurassic Attack. Now this thing. Silver chassis with purple roll cage and wheels, beaked printed tires. Moving on to Beakety Customs Bad News Travels Fast. Now this thing. Orange chassis with black roll cage and orange bead locks and silver wheels, beaked printed tires. Moving on to Beakety Customs Aftershock. Now this thing. Yellow chassis and wheels with blue roll cage with beaked printed tires. Moving on to Beakety Customs Northern Nightmare. Now this thing. Silver chassis with red roll cage and orange wheels, beacon to print the tires. Moving on to BKT Customs Blue Thunder. Now this thing, silver chassis with green roll cage and wheels, beacon to print the tires. Moving on to BKT Customs Dragon. Now this thing, silver chassis with maroon roll cage, green wheels, beacon to print the tires. Moving on to BKT Customs Megalodon. Now this thing, silver chassis and roll cage with aqua wheels, beacon to print the tires. Moving on to BKT Customs Rainbow Blast. Now this thing, red chassis with white roll cage and wheels, beacon to print the tires. Moving on to BKT Customs Kraken. Now this thing, copper chassis with dirt brown roll cage, pink wheels, beacon to print the tires. And now, moving on to the original Gravedigger. Now this thing, silver chassis with black roll cage and tires with yellow wheels. Moving on to Gravedigger the Legend. Now this thing, black chassis, roll cage and tires with silver wheels. Moving on to the retro Gravedigger. Now this thing, black chassis and tires with green roll cage and wheels. Moving on to Gravedigger number 7. Now this thing, silver chassis and wheels with green roll cage with flotation tires. Moving on to the green ghost Gravedigger. Now this thing, also silver chassis and wheels with green roll cage with flotation tires. Moving on to the 30th anniversary Gravedigger. Now this thing, silver chassis and wheels with green roll cage and bead locks. Moving on to the 40th anniversary Gravedigger. Now this thing, black chassis with silver chassis and wheels with black roll cage and tires with purple bead locks. Moving on to Son of a Digger. Now this thing. Silver chassis with blue roll cage and bead locks. Moving on to the Gravedigger ride truck. Now this thing. Green chassis and wheels with black tires. Moving on to the 1982, the original Gravedigger. Now this thing. Black chassis with yellow wheels with flotation tires. Moving on to the grain truck Gravedigger. Now this thing. Silver chassis and wheels with black chassis and wheels with flotation tires. Moving on to the 1986 Grandma Gravedigger. Now this thing. Black chassis with brown wheels, flotation tires. And now moving on to the green nitro neon Gravedigger. Now this thing. Green chassis wheels and green chassis roll cage and tires with white wheels. Moving on to the blue nitro neon Son of a Digger. Now this thing. Blue chassis and tires with dark blue roll cage with white wheels. Moving on to the yellow Charge Crusher Earthshaker. Now this thing. Yellow chassis and tires with brown roll cage with white wheels. Moving on to the pink Nitro Neon Calavera. Now this thing. Everything's all pink. Wheels, tires, chassis, and roll cage all pink. Moving on to the teal Nitro Neon Blue Thunder. Now this thing. Teal chassis and we got teal chassis and wheels with brown roll cage and tires. Moving on to the lime green Nitro Neon Gravedigger. Now this thing. Lime green chassis, wheels, and tires with black roll cage. Moving on to the 2024 Green Max T. Now this thing. pink chassis, green chassis and wheels with chrome roll cage with yellow wheels, yellow tires. Moving on to the 2024 Orange Max T. Now this thing orange chassis and wheels with chrome roll cage and yellow tires. Moving on to the orange Nitro Neon Max B. Now this thing, orange chassis, wheels, and tires with black roll cage. Moving on to the yellow Nitro Neon Max T. Now this thing, silver chassis with yellow roll cage and tires with black wheels. Moving on to the green Nitro Neon Max T. Now this thing, teal green chassis, silver chassis with green roll cage and tires with black wheels. Moving on to the purple Nitro Neon Max T. Now this thing, purple chassis, wheels, and tires with white roll cage. Moving on to custom Elementals Trucks Gravedigger. Now this thing, purple chassis with black roll cage and green and yellow wheels on the left and orange and red wheels on the right with blue tires. Moving on, last but not least, to custom phased out Son of a Digger. Now this thing, white chassis with black roll cage with 2 red wheels, 1 white wheel, and 1 black wheel with 2 black tires and 2 white tires. And that'll be it. Make sure you like, subscribe, or also you turn on your notifications to Parker Wilson's Blinking and his Migos. You have fun. Bye. And have a good night.